right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Free. I'm Ryan, and I'm the pastor here. It's good to be with you this Saturday evening. And first, let me just say this, y'all. Sorry about the parking. I know people are still looking for parking spots. Um, Zach Brown happened to roll into town tonight, just down the street, and he wasn't considerate enough to give me a heads up. So, brother didn't call me or nothing. So parking is a bit dicey tonight, and I'm so yes. I don't know. Where's the kids at? Who's Zach Brown? Shoot, man. Y'all, his name is Dan. You can talk to him later. For those of you online, I'll give you his phone number. Um, Listen, y'all, this is a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, and spiritual refugees. And what we do here is break the silence of addiction and create space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. If you're new with us tonight, welcome. I know I've met some of you new people. I know there's some new people online tonight. If you're here in the house and no one gave you a black bag, there's a black welcome bag for you. It's got fresh roasted coffee from Wagon Coffee. Tammy, my wife, roast the Wagon Coffee. It'll be the freshest coffee you ever have. I promise you that. So grab a black bag. There's some other swag in there. It's just a simple way to say welcome to the new folks in the house. Y'all, I gotta breathe tonight. It's been the last hour has been really hectic. We had a wedding today. Andrew and Chandra got married. I did their wedding just a couple of hours ago. Congratulations, Andrew and Chandra. They're part of this community. We'll save that for celebrations. Couple things you need to know about, though. The book discussion. Do we have that for the screen? Yeah. So some of y'all know that we have started a new series. We're doing a 6-week series. We kicked it off last week. It's on faith after doubt. We are embracing doubt. We're not ignoring it. We're not trying to figure out our way around it. We're actually embracing it here. And if you want to come, we're doing the 6-week book discussion on Wednesday nights, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. We're having some really good conversations in that group. So you don't have to sign up. Just come. If you're coming this week, do the reading. I put it in the email. It's chapters 5 through 8, is it? 5, 6? 4, 5, 6. Thank you, Cindy. 4, 5, 6. So you can just drop in, be a part of it. We're having some great conversation. Also, I want to let y'all know about, I mentioned this the last couple of weeks, we are having a panel discussion on Wednesday, so we'll take a break from the book discussion for this, but the panel discussion is Wednesday, September 29th, and I want y'all to be here. This is called The Truth About the Opioid Crisis. You all do know we have a crisis on our hands with opiates. We need to have this conversation. In 2020, 93,000 people died of an overdose. It's why we're having this conversation. I can't wait for y'all to meet our panel members. Y'all, this is going to be good. We got the right people for this. So this is, I hope you plan on coming to this. It will be live streamed as well because we want to get this message out. And it's not just giving you facts. They're also going to share with us how we can be involved, how we can make a difference in this. So I hope you plan on coming to that. And let me also tell y'all, speaking of parking, we only have 7 more weeks here. You know that last week we got our 60-day notice. We've been expecting that for some time, but it did come last Friday. So we have 7 weeks left here. And we are, to keep you in the loop, I wish I could say more. I've learned my lesson with that because sometimes things really fall apart. But we have 2 kind of options right now. One, we have submitted a letter of intent. It has been accepted and things are moving to kind of the next stage. And this is going to be a great space. Again, I wish I could tell you all more about it. It's 3 times the size of this space. It's in a great location. It will allow us to live into our mission, which has been so important for us. It's the question of how do we keep breaking the silence of addiction together and live into our mission of being like a recovery center. Not just a Saturday night service, but functioning like a center. So I'll tell you all more about that as soon as I have the information, more information on that. But you are going to love it. I promise you that. If the deal goes through. We know some deals fall through, don't we? It's just the way it is. Just the way it is, and y'all know how to roll with it. All right, y'all, the way we get started in this community. Oh, yes, thank you for that, Bobby. Yes. What? Oh, and Alyssa. Oh, my goodness. See, I'm all discombobulated. Let me say this, then, Alyssa, you can come forward. We are going to do a baptism service here on a Saturday night, October 30th. If anyone wants to get baptized, please talk to me. We're doing little Kerwin in this baptism, so this will be infants as well as adults. We do it in the big wagon here in the back. We fill that thing up with water, and we do baptisms in that. Listen, if you're in recovery and you're thinking, man, what is baptism all about? It's a symbol of new life. Water is always a symbol of new life. It's a symbol of the grace that's been with us, God's grace that's been with us, not just now when you get clean and sober, but the grace that's been with you the entire time. That means something to people in recovery, doesn't it? If you're interested in that, we're going to have a baptism conversation the night of October 14th at 6:30. So you can mark your calendar for that, but please do let me know if you're interested. Please do let me know if you want to be a part of that. We have a lot of fun with it. We fill up the wagon with water, and some of you have been there, done that. We're going to have a lot of fun. That might be our last Saturday in this space, so it could be kind of special. Let me also say this, speaking of calendar. October 23rd, the week before that, so right after this 6-week series is over, we're going to do a movie night in the park, just like we did. Do y'all remember last summer when we did that? All kinds of fun. I'll give you more information on that next week. But there's some cool things coming up. I want you all to be a part of them. Alyssa, will you come forward for a moment and give us the details? For those of you that don't know, Alyssa is our new Director of Free Kids and Family Empowerment. Take it away, Alyssa.
Thank you. Oh, that's very loud. Sorry, I wasn't ready for that. So as you know, we have kids in this community. We call them our littlest free members. We are in need of volunteers. Now, volunteers for Saturday nights, if you want to be with babies, awesome. If you want to teach lessons that I create that are super easy to follow, that's awesome too. We also need people to volunteer for events like our book study, because that has childcare for all of you families that are like, oh, I can't come because we have kids. Bring your kids. They're going to be cared for. The opioid panel, crisis panel, we're going to have childcare for that too. So yes, but we also need volunteers for that. So I have a volunteer sign-in. I have my phone number on there with my name, if you want to take a picture of it. Your name, your phone number, your email. The email is so that I can send you an email this week to let you know next steps. So if you're interested in volunteering, there are some steps we just have to go through, training, things like that. But I will send an email out Tuesday, hopefully. And then if you're interested in Saturdays, events, or both.
There you go, upsell.
Yeah. So this will be back by the Being Aware Bar if you guys are interested. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. Alyssa has been a godsend to this community. Did y'all see I posted a picture on our Facebook page last week? She had our kids, our free kids in the back, journaling about their biggest questions to God. Journaling about some of their doubts. I just think, man, that's awesome. Thank you, Alyssa. We've been needing you for a long time. We're so glad you're here. All right, y'all, I think I got the housekeeping things out of the way. It's a lot, isn't it? Yeah, breathe. The way we start here is with celebrations. We celebrate together. We lift up the good stuff. We don't ignore the hard stuff. We just don't start with it. Because in this community, we could start with it and never end. So we start with the good things, the celebrations, the new things happening in life, the new babies being born, or new jobs, or new sobriety anniversaries, whatever it is. We want to celebrate that with you. God joins with us in these celebrations. You all online join in these celebrations. 1,000 people throughout the week join in these celebrations. So we believe in doing this work together. So I want you all to take 3 minutes. If you're online, take the 3. If you're here in the house, we'll also take 3 and do our own thing. But lift them up. This is your opportunity online, I'm speaking, to get vulnerable in the comments. And I know that can feel sometimes a little creepy. What am I going to say? And people are going to love you. That's what's going to happen. People are going to surround you and celebrate with you. So get creepy, get awkward, take 3 minutes, and we'll be right back.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know. Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run towards the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more. Oh, we are all loved. all looking for adventure. We are 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 all looking for And I'm living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. Living free, living free, living free, and I was meant to be. I'm living free, living free.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you, Simon. All right, y'all, we're going to join back with our online crowd. Tammy, my wife, is going to join me up here. Sometimes you never, isn't it the beauty of being in front of people? You never know what's going to come out sometimes.
You handle it all well.
All right, that's scary. Okay, let's celebrate, shall we?
Mike says, so blessed. Celebrated 33 years of marriage yesterday, and
All
today
right.
I was replacing my roof, and my bosses and 4 other coworkers showed up to help without me asking, all because of God and sobriety.
Way to
There you
go, Mike. The life we get. Jeff, it's good to see you on here, dude. I am celebrating another sober day, one day at a time. There you go, Jeff. Glad you're here. Glad you're part of this community. And can I just interrupt for a moment to let them know? We celebrated a few months sober. We celebrated, shoot, why am I blanking on it now? A few days sober. Someone 6 days sober here. Someone celebrated their daughter being missing for 60 days. I think she said 60 days, and now is back home and 4 days sober. So I love that this community can get vulnerable and share those kinds of things. Thank you all for that, and thank you for doing it online too. All right.
This is my mama, Nisi. Our son-in-law and granddaughter both had accidents this week that caused minor concussions, but they are both doing fine. Our faithful father protected them from serious injury.
All
Yeah.
right, we'll celebrate that.
Heck yeah, we will.
Hey, you're in her profile picture. Look at
Hey,
that.
look at that.
All right, Jen says, celebrating my mom getting cleared by a doc to go to Florida to visit her first great-granddaughter. Also celebrating that our rescue, Jack's Furry Tale Rescues, has adopted all 10 puppies to amazing, awesome families. Good work, Jen and Christy. Way to go.
That's awesome.
Let's do one more shot. What's that?
I know. Look at that profile picture.
Yeah, we're not in that one. I ain't in that one. All right.
One more. All right. And Jessica says, celebrating 161 days sober.
Way to go, Jessica. Keep doing that.
We'll celebrate that.
There's one more.
There is?
Celebrating top of the town for Tammy.
You want to say a word, Tammy?
Thanks, Savon. Woohoo! You know what?
You should have brought the
Yeah.
plaque up.
Well, it's
Next
back.
time.
It's back there, and you guys can look at it. It's back there in the coffee room. But
Did you want to say anything about coffee?
I would love to. So I would love to offer y'all, if you are a coffee drinker or you want to try Wagon, tonight's the night to do it because I'm offering 25% off. And online, if you guys want to grab some, please do. WagonCoffeeRoasters.com. Oh my gosh! Thanks, Andrew.
Oh, look at this. Want me to hold it?
There you go. Yeah. Yes. So there
Boom.
you go. And of course, it's brewing in the back. So if you guys want
It
to
is
try
brewing in the
some,
back.
there's
Get y'all
some
a
on
cup of
tap.
coffee.
But don't drink too much. White.
The white coffee has 70% more. Ooh, did you hear that? 70% more caffeine. It even came with a buzz to it. So be careful. Please do drink your coffee responsibly. All right, y'all. We're going to jump into our second. Oh, do I need to tone that down a little bit? The second week of our series on faith after doubt. This one. You kicked out. Go ahead, you can play the video. So there is this place in John's gospel where Jesus is at this festival and he's hanging out and he finds himself surrounded by some religious folk. And they come and they ask him this question. They say, Jesus, how long, we'll throw it on screen for you, how long will you test our patience? If you are the Christ, tell us plainly. And here's the deal. Keep in mind, these are the religious leaders of the day, and they come to Jesus, and they're saying, Jesus, we've seen you do some good things. I mean, we've seen some of the healings. We've heard your message about loving people and loving others and even giving up your life for the others. But tell us, if you are the real deal, just tell us plainly. Have you ever found yourself asking that kind of question? Like, God, come on, man. I mean, I've read the stories. I've seen some things. I've been told what to believe. But God, if you're the real deal, just show us. And God, dang, why do you have to be so vague? God, why do you have to be so hard to find in a broken world? You know, there's this man by the name of Frederick Buechner. He is one of the most prolific Christian writers and preachers of our day. And he tells this story, and he starts the story by saying, if God really exists, why doesn't God just show himself? He says, what if God demonstrated God's existence in some sort of dramatic, irrefutable way, like taking the stars in the sky and spelling out a message? Can you imagine it? I am God. He says, can you imagine what would happen? There would be this sudden and tremendous upsurge of hope in the world. He said, finally, we would have proof of the extraordinary. Churches would be overflowing into football stadiums until some garden variety kid with a wad of bubble gum comes along and says, so what? So what if God exists? What difference does it make? And the whole thing crumbles. And that's really the more honest question, isn't it? It's not just, do you exist? But what difference does it make? And if it makes any difference at all, just show us plainly. You know, I remember sitting in Old Testament class in Bible school. Some of y'all know what happened right out of high school. I graduated high school and I grew up in mid-Missouri, and I left Missouri and I went to this state I'd never been, Michigan, and I attended a small Christian fundamentalist Bible school there for some time. And I was sitting in Bible class. It was Old Testament class, and it was right after tragedy had struck in my life. And we talked about that last week, how tragedy has a way of forcing you or allowing you to ask your biggest questions, express your deepest doubts. And I'm sitting there in a class, and I get up after the class was over and everyone had left, and I went and approached the Bible teacher. And I said, man, I'm struggling in my faith. I've got all these questions. And I told him, I said, you know what happened to my brother just a few weeks ago, and I don't know where he is, and is he with God? And if you read this story in this scripture, you learn this, and this scripture says this. And I'll never forget what he said to me. He was a tall man, and he had glasses, and his glasses were on the bridge of his nose, and he looked down, and he looked me in the eyes, and he said, it sounds like you just want to make an excuse to believe whatever you want to believe. And y'all, I have to be honest with you, it was a crushing moment for me because I liked this man. I respected this man. I thought, excuses? That's what you think this conversation is? And listen, I didn't know what I thought I wanted in a response. I just knew that one was a really shitty one. And I thought to myself, and it totally shut me down and filled me with shame, I thought, excuses? Dude, my faith is falling apart. I am broken. I don't know who God is anymore. I'm coming to you for some guidance. I'm hoping you can help me navigate through my faith. Excuses? That was my last day in that Old Testament class. I went on with my day. I went to bed that night. I got up. I went to the Old Testament class that next morning. Some of y'all know this story. I've shared it before. I was there for about 5 minutes, and I stood up and I walked out of the class and I went back to my dorm room, and I had my entire dorm room packed up in my car before that 90-minute class was over. I'm putting the last box in, and I shut the trunk, and I looked up, and the dean of the school was standing there. He said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm leaving." He said, "You can't just leave." To which I said, "Watch me." And what ensued from that moment on was a dark time in my life. Some dark days followed. What ensued was a deep dive into a life of addiction. And y'all do know, rarely is it one event. For those of you that have been in the battle, or you're there right now, rarely is it one event that throws us into addiction. It's usually a series of events, and then it's how we choose to handle those. It becomes a coping mechanism. It becomes an addiction. It grabs hold of us. But it's usually multi-layered, not just one thing. It's usually a pattern in our life. But I do need you to know, my brothers and sisters, your questions do not get you kicked out when it comes to the God stuff. In fact, is it possible that in the midst of your biggest questions, you discover that you're not alone? That God is found in that exact place, and it might just be the very beginning of seeing everything new again. Do you know, just this week, just in the last 7 days, these two people did not know the topic for tonight, by the way, because I didn't tell anybody. The last 7 days, two people told me two separate stories of what it was like for them to get kicked out of a religious institution for asking too many questions. One of those one of those people wrote me last week right after the service on Saturday night. She reached out and wrote me this Facebook message, and I got permission from her, so I'd like to share with you this message. We'll throw it on the screen for you. She said, "Wow, thank you for the message tonight. Got me teary-eyed. When I was 14, keep in mind this was last week. When I was 14, I was sent to a Catholic private school because of my behavior and drinking. In Bible class, I would ask, 'Where is God? I don't understand where this God guy is that you were talking about.' Then I would be kicked out of class for questioning it. I had an experience about a year sober. A woman in a meeting was saying, 'Where the F is God with all these school shootings?' And I was wondering the same thing. I was just beginning to learn how to pray, and later that day, the monarch butterflies were migrating. I walked outside, and they flooded me, sitting on my leg and flying all around me. It was this awesome experience where I thought the divine was showing me I'm right here through it all." Yeah. Is it possible that your biggest questions, in the midst of your greatest doubts, you discover that you are not alone? You discover that God is found in that exact place, and it might be the very beginning of you seeing everything new again. And isn't that really what we're seeking? Isn't that really what we're hoping when we express those questions, when our faith is falling apart, that we're not alone? That God is somehow in the midst of that we can somehow see things in a new way again. You know, early in the pages of his book, Faith After Doubt, the book that we're doing this series after, the book that we're reading together on Wednesday nights, he says this early in the pages of his book. He says, "Whatever your background, you picked up this book because you want to deal with your doubts in a positive way. You are seeking guidance. You're seeking answers. You're hoping to discover you're not alone, and maybe even that your descent into doubt could ultimately lead you upward." Does our doubt, do our questions lead us somewhere? So I want to return to John's Gospel for just a moment, because right before that story that we started with in the beginning, there's a story in John chapter 3, and it's about Jesus and this man named Nicodemus. You'll see it on the screen. It's a story about big questions and doubts and seeing everything new again, and I want to share it with you. Here's how it starts. John chapter 3. There was a Pharisee named Nicodemus, a Jewish leader. He came to Jesus, keep this in mind, at night, hold on to that, and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher who has come from God, for no one could do these miraculous signs that you do unless God is with him. Jesus answered, I assure you, unless someone is born anew, it's not possible to see God's kingdom. And let's pause there for just one moment, because people get squirmy on this one. That phrase, born anew, it comes from somewhere. In the Greek, and keep in mind, if you're new to the scriptures, New Testament written in Greek, Old Testament Hebrew, that word in Greek is this word. We'll throw it on the screen, anothen. Say that word with me, anothen. And it literally means anew, or from above, or again. So to be born anew, to be born from above, to be born again. And I get it what happens when we start talking this. Some of y'all are getting squirmy right now. You're saying, oh my goodness, he's become a religious fanatic. He's talking about being born again. What happened, Pastor? You're sounding weird. Stay with me though. Because when Jesus, and I do get it, y'all, we have baggage with this, some of us for good reason. When Jesus talked about it, it was always in the sense of seeing life in new ways. It was always in the sense of having new life, not in some sort of afterlife, but in life right here, right now. Now keep in mind, Nicodemus, he's a powerful, influential leader of this religious group called the Pharisees. And here's the thing about Pharisees. They knew. They had all kinds of knowledge and information up here. They knew religious law. They knew religious doctrine. They knew the Torah backwards and forwards. And by the way, the Torah is what we know as the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. They knew this stuff backwards and forwards. But they couldn't see. You can know a lot of things. But that's different than seeing, isn't it? That's different than experiencing. The storyteller is giving us a huge heads up. When does Nicodemus come? At night. He can't see what God is up to in the world. And Jesus responds and says, you want to see? You want to see what God is up to? You want to see a whole nother world bursting forth right here among this world? You want to see what God is up to? You have to first experience rebirth. You can't have it without being born anew or born again, anothen. Man, Jesus uses this most beautiful metaphor, beautiful imagery for new life, and Nicodemus has some questions. He's got some doubts. Here's how he responds. See if you relate. See, maybe you're Nicodemus. Nicodemus asked, how is it possible for an adult to be born? It's impossible to enter the mother's womb for a second time and be born, isn't it? Come on, if we're not laughing, we ain't getting it. Jesus answered, I assure you, unless someone is born of water and the Spirit, it's not possible to enter God's kingdom. Whatever is born of the flesh is flesh, and whatever is born of the Spirit is spirit. Don't be surprised that I said to you, you must be born anew. God's Spirit blows wherever it wishes. You hear its sound, but you don't know where it comes from or where it's going. It's the same with everyone who is born of the Spirit. Nicodemus said, how are these things possible? Jesus answered, what? You are a teacher of Israel and you don't know these things? Now, when you read through the scriptures, Jesus always welcomes questions, but sometimes Jesus has a few questions of his own. Now, being born anew, being born again, it is always about seeing. And for Jesus, it was always about seeing yourself, the world, the divine in new ways. You begin to see things you hadn't seen before. The questions get bigger. The world gets bigger. Something inside you gets bigger. And you begin to see what's important. Have y'all had experiences like this? Yeah. And in my experience, it's difficult to have this experience without some questions, without some doubts, without some honesty in your life. You see, is it true? You had to go through the darkness in order to see the light. How many of y'all resonate with that? You had to go through some darkness to see some light. You see, I had to hear from that Bible teacher that, geez, Ryan, it just sounds like you're wanting some excuses so you can believe whatever the heck you want to believe. I had to hear that so I could come to believe that there's a better way than that. I had to get arrested for a DUI while I was studying biblical studies in college. I had to get arrested and put in handcuffs and put in the back of a cop car, then a jail cell. I had to go through that experience so I could know what it was like to sit with others in their moments of deep shame. I had to hear the words from my wife on January 7th, 2013, when she came down the stairs and I was passed out on the couch again, and she's crying this time. She has tears and she's holding an empty liquor bottle saying, "What are we going to do?" Man, in all my questions, in my deepest doubts, in that deep moment of desperation where I didn't think there was a way out, I had to hear that. And that night, I met two other alcoholics at a coffee shop at night. Man, I felt like Nicodemus. And they start talking this crazy language. They said there's a way out. They said it gets better than it is right now. The chaos doesn't have to continue. And I thought, no, you guys aren't getting it. I did not understand. Are you guys hearing what I'm telling you? I cannot put down the drink. I am losing everything that's important to me. Y'all don't get it. Man, I was just like Nicodemus. I had the same questions, the same doubts, and the irony, I had to sit in rooms full of other alcoholics to experience rebirth and new life. And I thought that would never be me. Those aren't my people. I'm not one of them. That was my brother. That was other family members, not me. I had to sit with them to encounter a God of unconditional love and extravagant grace. It's why people in recovery, we know something about doubts and questions, don't we? We know something about new life. We know something about rebirth. It's why Brian McLaren said this. He said, in a world of addiction recovery, folks often speak of hitting bottom, that come to Jesus moment. When you can no longer deny that you have a problem, many of us have a similar moment regarding our faith. Our questions and doubts are real and they are not going away. We have to face them head on. To our utter surprise, it's only at the bottom that we find a trap door. It opens to a tunnel that leads us to better days. Amen. Yeah, my brothers and sisters, do you believe that better days are possible? And y'all think about it for one moment. I'll close with this. Think about how different the story could have gone. Think about if the story read that Nicodemus came to Jesus at night with all his doubts, all his questions, all his wonderings, but Jesus wasn't there. Aren't you glad that God is present with you in the darkness? And to answer that question, to go back, what difference does it make? Do you believe that God is present with you in your darkness? That your pain and your questions and your doubts, they don't get you kicked out. Instead, God meets you exactly where you are in the midst of all the questions, all the doubts, all the no way, you don't understand. No way, you don't know where I've been. You don't know what I've gone through. You don't know what I've done to other people. And y'all don't miss that verse 7 and 8 because it's tucked away, but it's a great little surprise where Jesus says, don't be surprised. God's Spirit blows wherever it wishes. In other words, there is a great mystery to the heart of every human being. There is something deeply mysterious that happens when you experience rebirth, new life. And you might not always have the language to articulate it because the truth is grace is sometimes beyond words, isn't it? You know, Jesus shifts the conversation from knowing, just being filled with information. Some of y'all are good at that. You've lived your whole life that way, to sing. And the question becomes for us, how do we become the kinds of people that stay engaged even in the midst of our biggest questions and greatest doubts? What do? We open ourselves. We keep opening ourselves. I know it's a vulnerable act. We open ourselves to God even with all the questions, especially when we don't have all the answers. We cry out to God, God, here's my life. Help me see again. We say to God, God, things have been pretty dark recently. It feels like I'm stumbling in the darkness. Yes, keep coming to God with all your questions. In all your darkness, keep coming. Because my brothers and sisters, it might just lead to rebirth, to new life. And here's the thing about rebirth. In my experience, the greatest experiences of rebirth tend to happen in your deepest, darkest moments. When you're asking your biggest questions, when you're saying and expressing and voicing your greatest doubts, keep coming. Keep showing up, because in my experience, God will meet you exactly as you are and where you are. So take a moment, take 60 seconds, and reflect on your own life. Where's that doubt? What does it look like in your life? Where's God in all of that? Take a moment. Yeah, sometimes we could sit a little longer, huh? Need a few minutes for this stuff. But don't forget, you can go back throughout the week. It's not a one and done type deal. These are some of the deepest things to reflect on. So I hope we're engaging in the hard work throughout the week. And please don't do this work alone. You're way too valuable to try to walk this journey alone. Do it with other people. Ask the hard questions with other people. All right, y'all. If you're new in this community, you need to know that every single Saturday night since the beginning of Freeze time, since the beginning of time, we've had a guest storyteller with us. This guest storyteller comes and reflects on their experiences, gives us some hope along the way to tie in with our theme, to deepen the theme tonight. And man, Jonathan shared a story a couple weeks ago, and I caught him after he shared that story. I said, dude, can you come and share that story with us tonight? Because it's powerful, and it has everything to do with doubt. So I want you all to help welcome my friend, Jonathan Brandland. If you want. You'll be a lot lower than me. You're still lower than me, so I'm going to lower myself a little bit so we can match. Um, dude, does it not sound like we're in a nightclub with that boom? Did you notice it, the bass? The speakers turned to the... Anyway, that's a side note, man. We'll just jump into things. Jonathan, I'm glad you're here, dude. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for
And I know you are part of this community. You've been coming a lot more the last few weeks. I know work has let up a little bit, or things in your life changed.
No, I just
No, I lied.
I got to get used to that. I just wanted to expand things a little bit more, and
Sweet, dude.
I've always loved the free group. So I heard about Saturday nights, and I just started coming.
I'm glad you're here, man.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing this story with us tonight. And I just want to jump into things because you told me that first I want people to know who you are. So we're a community for addicts, loved ones of addicts, spiritual refugees. So who are you? Where do you fall in with that? And tell us the story just to kick things off. You said you had doubt on would God forgive you for everything you've done. And that's not even a story I want you to jump into, but I want you to start there.
Okay.
How's that? That was intense. Sorry.
Yeah, I know, right? One thing at a time. But
Yeah.
So I would call myself an alcoholic, a loved one of alcoholics, and a spiritual refugee. So all three.
All right. Welcome.
And then repeat that question again so I answer it correctly.
So I'm just reading off my notes. You said you had doubt on how is God going to forgive me after everything I've done. You talked about picking up a dirty chip.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then you finally got sober for real on January 28th of 2018.
Well, I'll start with that story.
Yeah.
So I took a dirty chip and went out. Didn't go get hammered, but I knew in that moment instantly it wasn't what I wanted. But I kept that in for about 3 weeks, maybe 3.5 weeks. And every meeting was honesty, integrity. I'd hear it on the radio. It didn't matter where it was.
And tell people, just if people have never been to a meeting, what is a chip?
So,
And I'm
chip,
going to turn on the air. It's hot in here.
in AA, we have milestones for sobriety, 30 days, 60 days, years. And we celebrate that. And it's kind of it's a big accomplishment to get 30 days, 60 days, whatever it is. And, for me to just lie about it, it just didn't feel good. It was a terrible feeling. And, that was one of those things where how could God take me back after everything I've done? I was looking for the word earlier. Defiance is what really it was. Because for me, I was in open resistance for a long time.
Yep.
And I did that moral compass we talk about. I had it back then when I was alcoholic, but I chose not to listen to it. So
Yeah.
for me, it was how many times did I not listen to it? And he's going to know every time I did. So
I like how you described lying. Lying doesn't feel good. Like there's something internally in us that says, this doesn't feel right,
exactly.
especially if you're trying to get sober. Doesn't work. No. So, Jonathan, the reason I invited you here is Jonathan shared this story, and I put it in the email this morning. I put it on the social media post that your words to me was, when I saw those little boys' caskets pass by, that's the moment I turned away from God.
Yeah.
And you said I didn't stop believing in God, but in that moment I simply walked away.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us that story and what happened. Tell us about doubt.
So 21 years ago, my best friend's little brothers died at a houseboat accident. They drowned of carbon monoxide poisoning. And I was actually supposed to be on that trip, ended up not being on it because of a soccer tournament. So I remember going to the funeral, and when they brought those two caskets down, the church I was baptized in, everything I grew up in the church was there. In that moment when they came down the aisle, I turned away from God. I said, I'm done with this. Like, if you're not going to be there, I truly grew up in the church, and I loved it when I was a child. And, I'd had so many experiences where I just felt abandoned, dismissed. And then in that moment, I stopped listening. And that was the word I was looking for, was defiance. It's open resistance, bold disobedience.
So first of all, how old were you when that happened?
Just about to turn 16.
So almost 16.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when those kinds of things happen at that age, it messes with us in a profound way.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jonathan, I'm going to ask you to do something a little hard and put words to what was it, so we're getting theological here, what was it that made you say, no, this God stuff, screw this stuff. I don't need this stuff. This doesn't work.
It was the pain, I think, of everyone around me. I mean, because I watched I knew what it did to that family. These are my closest this is my second family. I mean, I've known this family since I was about 2 years old. The oldest son has been one of my best friends for years.
Yeah.
The pain that caused, the ripple effect. I saw that, and I didn't want to feel pain anymore. I was tired of it. And in that moment, I think that's what really turned me away, was just this inner anguish of, like, is he really there? Is he not? You know, I believed in God, but like in those moments, I just doubted it. And it was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Just curious, how many of y'all can resonate with that? Like, it's not that you don't believe in God, you just don't believe it makes any good bit of difference. It's too painful. You know, next week, I won't get into next week too much, but we're going to talk about the Deus Ex Machina. And the Greeks, they had a word for this God that would come in and relieve all the tension and make everything better. And when that doesn't happen, we're like, peace out, God. Like, this is what causes doubt. We'll talk about that next week. So how did it, so you lived for many years just being, how do you describe it? Being absent, turning away from God, God had no role in your life. How do you describe that?
I'd say absent. I mean, I'd have those occasional foxhole prayers, but for the most part, you know, I stopped praying. I mean, 100%, because, you know, I prayed for all kinds of things back in the day, and it didn't fulfill me in some ways when I got let down like that. So for me, it was so painful to go through.
So fast forward some years. So you lived many years this way.
Mm-hmm.
We won't say your age. You're a young man. But you lived many years this way, and then you got sober in 2018.
Yep.
So coming up on 3 years, right?
4.
4 years. Oh, my goodness. Don't let me rob you.
Yeah,
4 years.
Hey, whoa, 4.
3.5.
Right.
Let's say it that. So I want people to hear, because sometimes what happens when we walk through this doubt and when we walk through our questions and we face them head on, it leads to rebirth, to new life, to new experiences. Tell us what you're involved in now and how that connection happened.
With AA or?
Well, with the Double Angel Foundation.
Okay. So I turned away from God because of those 2 boys' little death. Well, 3 weeks ago, I was invited to join the board of the nonprofit that was created in their memory. So now I get to sit on the board for the reason I left God to begin with. So for me, it's this big kind of journey. I mean, everything that I went through, it all makes sense now because of the journey.
Yeah. And you wouldn't wish this experience on anybody, right? And you would, correct me if I'm wrong, you would never say, God caused this, right?
No, absolutely not.
But you had to go through it so you could sit with others in their pain.
Exactly.
Is it true?
Yes.
What was it like having that conversation? I think that the mother of these boys invited you in on this.
Yeah.
Is that right? What was that conversation like?
You know, it started off, you know, they just wanted to see how I was doing, everything like that. But they knew what I'd been doing in my career, and they knew I was sober, and they'd seen what I'd done with their son, and just the impact I'd had on him, you know, in getting sober, because he went down a far darker path than I went.
Yeah.
I mean, we both diverged very hard from the church, but he went 10 times farther than I did. And being able to help him, you know, she knew I've always been close to him, but she reached out and said, hey, you know, I really think you'd be a great member of this board, you know, with what you've done in your career to help this. So it's not what I expected, but I'd been looking for something more to be able to give back in a different way than just AA, and it was presented. And that's how this, I can't explain how it works.
So wait a minute. You're saying your sobriety had a positive impact on other people's lives.
Right.
You mean it didn't just hurt you all those years of addiction?
No, yeah.
And you mean now in your sobriety you actually get to give the gift back of life to other people?
Funny how that circle works.
Come on. Tell me there's not a God.
There is.
Dude, anything else you want to say about that? Sometimes I think it's the simplicity of us hearing the stories of sometimes all this stuff happens and you come out and you're like, and now look.
You know,
Now look what God's doing.
by the end of my drinking, when I really wanted to be done, I mean, it was in those last few months, I actually wanted a relationship with God again, because I knew what it felt like before. I just didn't know how. And then walking into AA and looking at the steps on the wall, I realized pretty quickly it was just 12 steps to create a relationship with God again. And I knew it wasn't going to be an easy path. I didn't want to do step 4. I didn't want to do step 3. The only one I wanted to do was step 1 and 12. But
How'd that work for you?
No, it didn't. No. My sponsor held me to that one. So,
Only a real alcoholic would say something like that.
hey, you're right. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, exactly. So
Go
yeah,
ahead.
I mean that's really it. But I was looking for that, and it took some time. But when I knew he was back, I knew he was back. I mean, I didn't. For me, it was a light turning back on, and I really love that phrase, "living in the sunlight of the Spirit," because
Yeah.
you do. I mean, even today, I went for a run in the mountains, and I love going running in the mountains. Next to rivers. I feel in God's country. So, I mean, that's what I did before I came here.
Dude, thank you so much for being here tonight to get vulnerable enough to share kind of a tender story. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thanks for giving others hope. And can you stick around afterwards? So
Absolutely.
y'all, Jonathan, my boy Jonathan's going to stick around. If you've got questions or comments for Jonathan online, you can put them in the comments. But if you're here in person and you want to talk to Jonathan afterwards, stick around and hook it up.
Well, thank you.
Thanks, brother. I'm so glad you're here. Yeah. All right, y'all. If you want to connect with Jonathan, he'll be sticking around. Do so after the service. The way we close down the service here, one of our final acts that I mentioned at the beginning, final acts. Sometimes I don't know where these words come from. Practices. We do heartaches together. We don't just celebrate together. We do heartaches because what I know is each and every week, y'all are going through some hard stuff. I hear it from you. I get the messages, the phone calls, the emails, whatever it is. I know you guys hear it from each other. Y'all are connected. And what I know is you totally suck at carrying this stuff alone. We don't carry the burdens alone. You don't have to. That's the beauty of community. You don't have to carry this stuff alone. We carry it together. So I want you to take 3 minutes and give us the things you're struggling with. We have a prayer team here on site that prays for you throughout the week. So put it in the comments. I know, again, it can feel a little awkward putting your stuff in the comments. And what are people going to think of me? And what, am I going to get judged? And on 3, what don't we do here? 1, 2, 3. We don't do shame here, so put it in the comments. Let people walk with you. Bind yourself to other people. If you're here in the house, we'll do this work together. But take 3 minutes, and then we'll come right back. for mentioning that here, and thank you for getting vulnerable enough, and thank you for being here and showing up, because the other option is you could be isolating right now and doing things that aren't going to lead anywhere good. So good for you for being here tonight. Really, that's a big, big step. And sorry, guys, if there's more of you, stick around and talk to someone afterwards. I'll be happy to talk, or talk to someone here. And just the power of binding yourself to other people. Don't forget to do that. Your turn.
Hello again.
It's you again. You're like the Holy Spirit. Sometimes she just appears. Hello again. It's me, God. Okay, go ahead.
Can I start with Christian? Because she's been heavy on my
Yeah.
heart. And Nairi just shared that our friend Christian had a brain aneurysm. What was that? Wednesday? Thursday? Just a couple of
Thursday
days
night.
ago. Yeah. And Nairi reached out, and so prayers for her. She's in the hospital. It's
Yep.
heavy stuff when you know that your friend's going through that.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
Mike says, need prayers for my granddaughter who, as we sit here, is being taken to Children's in Chicago with RSV and pneumonia. Panicking a little, just got the phone call 10 minutes ago.
Sorry, Mike. Dang. Prayers for you, Mike,
That's hard. Dang.
and the family.
Keep us posted. Ooh.
Monica says, I'm having a rough time fighting my addictions and I need hope. Monica, thank you for mentioning that. My guess is, I'm not typing right now, but there are people in this community who are going to reach out to you in love right now. So please don't shut down. Thank you for getting vulnerable enough to say that, and y'all surround her with love. Monica, grateful you're here.
Jen says, I like to ask for prayer for someone I met via rescue. She's needing to rehome her fur kid because of unexpected medical needs of her 17-year-old daughter, Mary Grace. She has pandas.
Pandas?
Pandas? Never heard of it before. It's quite debilitating. Please pray for Mary Grace and her family. Will do, Jen. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. All right, Deborah. Deborah, good to have you here tonight. Have been
Deborah.
having a hard time with anxiety and trying to decide if I should retire. Well, prayers for you, Deb. Prayers for you going through that. I'm glad you mentioned it. Sometimes that's like the first and greatest step, is to put words to it and get it out. So glad you're here. Thank you for mentioning that and trusting our community with that. Shall we do one more?
Hey, Andrea. She says, prayers for my boys and my daughter overseas. Prayers for them, my friend.
All right. So, yeah, let's stop there. If there's more, y'all can keep putting them in. Thank you for joining me up here. Do you have more?
I just want to give a shout out to our tech team rocking it back there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bobby, Sydney, Chris, Andrew, y'all are the best.
Yeah, Danny, we miss you. They're holding down the fort for you.
They
there,
are
brother.
totally holding down. They're more than holding down the fort.
Save it for celebration.
All right, grateful for y'all. Thank you, Tammy, for mentioning that. By the way, you see this wagon behind me. I should tell the story of the wagon because we got just an extra minute, and it's been a minute, like 2 weeks. We have the wagon's a central image in our community, and on top of the wagon sits our giving box. There's giving boxes scattered throughout the premises, the property here at Free. And but let me tell you all why we're the wagon. It's why we carry the burdens together. When I was at the rescue mission in L.A., this was a few years ago now, and the rescue mission in L.A., it's one of the largest in the country, and I was taking a tour with the executive director, and he took us up to the top floor, and on the top floor is their memorabilia wall, and in the center of that wall was a picture of a wagon, and I asked him what the story was with the wagon, and he said, you don't know the story of the wagon? And I said, please do tell. And he said, let me tell you about the wagon. The wagon is how the rescue mission in L.A. got started. Back in the late 1800s, this wagon would go into the roughest parts of L.A. They would distribute food, hope, clothing, Bibles, other things. And then at the end of the night, they would welcome people to get on the wagon. And what happens when a bunch of drunks get on a wagon? some of them fall off. And what and it's a party, yes. And what happened on this wagon though, when the drunks would fall off, well, this wagon would stop and the sober ones would get off and lift them back on the wagon because they knew where they were headed. They were headed to a place of recovery. And when he told me that story, I took out my phone and I snapped a picture of that wagon and I said, that is what the church should be about. The church should be a wagon. It's why here at Free we do not do shame. We don't believe in it because it doesn't work. It doesn't lead to healing. So we are the wagon. And I have to tell y'all, it really is each and every week. It's not lost on us. The emails we get, that some of you send checks through the mail. We have Subsplash, and I actually do look at those and I read each of your memos, and it's so moving to see how you all are invested. Yes, I'm talking financially here. It's so moving, and y'all need to know it's what keeps the mission going forward. It's what's going to allow us to move into a new space and create a new home in that space. And so I'm so grateful for you all. Thank you for being a part of that. Thank you for believing in the mission here. Not just believing, that's like a cheap word, but for being part of the mission here and investing your time, energy, resources. It means so much. And so if, especially if you call this place home, I know it's a spiritual practice for many of you to give, and we're really grateful. And if you'd rather give online through digital ways, there are 3 ways to do that. And the first way is you can just go to the website. Or I'm sorry, you can download the app first. The app, the free spiritual community app, it's free. You can give there. Or you can go to the website freespiritualcommunity.com. Both these methods are safe, simple, and secure. And the third safe, simple, and secure method is to text the number on your screen and text Be the Wagon. It'll send you through some instructions. Really easy. And again, your generous giving here sustains the mission, breaking the silence of addiction and creating space for healing, recovery, and spiritual connection. That's what we're about here. So thank you all. It is good to be with you tonight on another Saturday night as we struggle and wrestle through things and experience joy together along the way. Hopefully next week is better parking. Don't give up on us just because of the parking. Don't do it yet. Man, someone is coming next Saturday. Ben, don't tell anybody about it. It's a few Saturdays away, actually. All right, y'all, can we close in a prayer together? Yeah, here in this community, we just simply open our hands. It's a sign of openness. We're open to the work that God is doing all around us and through us and in us. And if you don't know this prayer, it's actually a really beautiful prayer. It's called the third step prayer. And it'll be on your screen for those of you that don't know it. So feel free to look up at the screen. And let's say this prayer together. It goes, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. My free brothers and sisters, is it possible that your deepest questions and your biggest doubts are reminding you that you're not alone, that God is in the midst, and that it's all headed somewhere? And because of that, this week, may you experience all kinds of grace and peace. And we'll see you next week.